The collected works of Sri Ramana Maharshi, Poems, Chapter 4, 5 Hymns to Arunachala. The 5 hymns to Arunachala are the earliest poems of the Maharishi, except for a few short verses. They were written about 1914, that is when he was about 35 years old, as he was born in December 1879. He was still living in Virupaksha cave on the hill. Some of his followers, who were sadhus, used to go into the town of Tirunamalai daily to beg for food. One day they asked the Maharishi to compose a song for them to sing as they went. At first he refused, saying that there were already plenty of songs by the ancient Shaivat saints. They continued to press him, however, and he began to compose a song with a refrain at the end of each and every stanza. One day he started to go round the hill with Palani Swami walking behind him. After he had gone some way, Ayya Swami seems to have called Palani Swami back and given him a pencil and paper, saying, "For some days now Swami has been composing stanzas every day. He may do so today as well, so you had better take this paper and pencil with you." That day, Sri Bhagavan practically completed the marital garland of letters, the first of the 5 hymns. It tells in glowing symbolism of the love and union between the human soul and God, and is among the most profound and moving poems in any language. Although he wrote it was established in the bliss of indissoluble union, it was written for the sake of devotees and expresses the attitude of devotion and aspiration. The second, third, and fourth poems or hymns were written at about the same time, and they also adopt the same attitude. Whereas the later poems of the Maharishi are more doctrinal, these hymns are more emotional, expressing more the attitude of devotion and aspiration. The 11 verses and the 8 stanzas are among the very few poems of the Maharishi that were written quite spontaneously without any request, as he himself said when speaking of them. The only poems that came to me spontaneously and compelled me, as it were, to write them without anyone urging me to do so are the 11 verses to Sri Arunachala and the 8 stanzas to Sri Arunachala. The opening words of the 11 stanzas came to me one morning, and even though I tried to suppress them, saying, "What have I to do with these words?" they would not be suppressed till I composed a song bringing them in, and all the words flowed easily without any effort. The remaining stanzas, except 2, were also composed in the same way. Shortly afterwards, Narayana Reddy came. He was at that time living in Vellore as an agent of Singer and Company, and he used to come from time to time. Ayya Swami and Palani told him about the poems, and he said, "Give them to me at once and I will go and get them printed." He had already published some books. When he insisted on taking the poems, I told him he could do so, and he could publish the first 11 as one form of poem and the rest, which were in a different meter, as another. To make up the required quota, I at once composed 2 more stanzas, and he took all the 19 stanzas with him to get them published. The 5th hymn, Arunachala Pancharatnam, is of a different nature to the first 4. The great Sanskrit poet and devotee Ganapati Shastri, who was a follower of Bhagavan, begged him to write a poem in Sanskrit. Bhagavan replied, laughing, that he scarcely knew any Sanskrit and no Sanskrit meters. Shastri, however, explained a meter to him, and repeated his request. Bhagavan then composed a poem of 5 stanzas, 2 on one day and 3 on the following day. They were all in perfect, flawless Sanskrit. It is a cryptic account of the different paths to realization, and therefore a commentary has been included with the translation. This hymn is chanted daily at the time of Veda Parayana. It is to be understood that in all these hymns, the word Arunachala means God and nothing else. It also, however, means the physical hill of Arunachala in South India, where God is peculiarly manifested for the Maharishi and his disciples. From ancient times, various spiritual centers in India have represented various paths and modes of doctrine, and Arunachala, among them the doctrine of Advaita and the path of self-inquiry. Although the ultimate doctrine and the supreme and most direct path, this throughout the ages has not been the most popular, because for most people it seemed too austere and difficult. The Maharishi attained realization through a spontaneous act of self-inquiry with no human guru. There is no place to do more than touch upon the mystery of this here. It is sufficient to note that the Maharishi agreed with all other masters that a guru is necessary, adding, however, that the guru need not necessarily take human form. When he left home as a youth who was already a sage, Arunachala drew him like a powerful magnet. He went straight there and stayed there for the rest of his life. It was Arunachala that he regarded as his guru, and these hymns are written to Arunachala, to the Guru, to God manifested, to the Absolute. Through the potent grace of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi, the path of self-inquiry was brought within the competence of men and women of this age, was indeed fashioned into a new path that can be followed anonymously in the conditions of the modern world, with no form or ritual, nothing to distinguish a person outwardly from the world wherein he moves. This creation of a new path to suit the needs of the age has made Arunachala the spiritual center of the world. More than ever, now that he has shed his physical body and is one with Arunachala, the grace and guidance that emanates from him to those who turn to him and seek his aid is centered at Arunachala. It is the holy place and many are drawn there, both those who were disciples of the Maharishi in his lifetime and those who have come later. It remains to be said that the literally Tamil in which the hymns were written can be used in an extremely cryptic manner, and the first hymn especially abounds in passages which can be understood in more than one manner. In such cases, the alternative readings are given. Before coming to the 5 hymns, we print first a verse that Sri Bhagavan wrote on Sri Ganesha as being an auspicious opening to the poems. After this comes a verse that Sri Murugnar wrote on the significance of Arunachala, and one by Bhagavan on the significance of the beacon that is lit on its summit every year at the festival of Deepam. This is followed by an extract from Skanda Purana on the glory of Arunachala, which Sri Bhagavan rendered into Tamil verse. Only after this follow the 5 hymns. First, to Sri Ganesha. One day in 1912, a potter came to the Virupaksha cave with a small image of Sri Ganesha that he had made and presented it to Sri Bhagavan. A disciple suggested that both he and Sri Bhagavan should write a verse to celebrate the occasion, and this is what Sri Bhagavan wrote. He who begot you as a child you made into a beggar as a child yourself. You then lived everywhere just to support your own huge belly I too am a child. O child God in that niche, encountering one born after you, is your heart made of stone? I pray you look at me. Significance of Arunachala. The sudden rise of the blazing column of Annamalai, which is the other name for Arunachala, in front of Brahma and Vishnu, and their utter distress at not being able to know the same, is symbolic of the Sphurna of the heart center as the real self of the intellect and the ego. Significance of the beacon: getting rid of the I am the body idea and merging the mind into heart to realize the self as non-dual being, and the light of all is the real significance of darshan of the beacon of light on Annamalai, the center of the universe. Sri Arunachala Mahatmya, the glory of Sri Arunachala. Nandi said, this extract is from the Skanda Purana. That is the holy place. Of all, Arunachala is the most sacred. It is the heart of the world. Know it to be the secret and sacred heart center of Shiva. In that place he always abides as the glorious Aruna hill. That day on which the ancient and the wonderful linga of the Arunachala took shape is the asterism of Ardhara in the month of Mrigashira, and the day on which Vishnu and the other devas worshipped the Lord in form of effulgence is the day of Mahashivratri. Shiva said, though in fact fiery, my lackluster appearance as a hill on this spot is an act of grace and loving solitude for the maintenance of the word. Here I always abide as the great one Siddha. Remember that in the interior of my heart is the transcendental glory with all the enjoyments of the world also. This glorious Arunachala is that of which the mere sight suffices to remove all demerits which divide up being into egos and finite words. What cannot be acquired without endless pains, the true import of Vedanta, is easily attained by all who can either directly sight this hill or even mentally think of it from afar. I ordain that residence within a radius of 3 yojanas, a yojana is 10 miles, of this hill shall by itself suffice to burn off all defects and effect union with the Supreme even in the absence of initiation. Devi said, this is always the abode of pious devotees. Those who do evil to others here will, after suffering ills, be destroyed. Wicked persons will be completely bereft of their powers to do evil here in the twinkling of an eye. Do not fall into the burning fire of the anger of Lord Arunachala, who has assumed the form of a hill of fire. Om Arunachala Om.